Welcome to How to Network from Home. My name is Emily Decane, and I am the founder and director of Giants Network. Before we get started, I'm just going to go over a few webinar etiquette rules. So the first that everyone's been doing such an awesome job with is making sure that their mics are muted. And also, I welcome you to change your name to the optional format that was in the email. So like mine, you can share your name if you feel comfortable sharing your pronouns, as well as if you represent an organization. If you're an entrepreneur, you can also put that in there. I welcome you to also have something ready to write with. So we are going to be doing a few activities. So if you want to take some notes as well, we are going to be releasing the slides at the end of the day, but just making sure that those are available to you. You might want to have your own notes. As well as we've already done, participating in the chat is really helpful to me because I can only see you, I can't hear you. And we will be doing a few activities where you can come off your mic if you want to share some thoughts as well. And I welcome you to turn your camera on where you feel comfortable. And then finally, we will have a Q&A. And again, because of our tech delay, I will make sure that we do run 10 minutes over time for the Q&A. So I'll be here, I'll be available to chat. Also, Rebecca Joseph, who is also the founder and CEO of Women in Politics, will be here, and she will be also helping me with the Q&A. And then before we move on, there's just one more piece of a little bit of admin is because I'm in Toronto, Canada, a thing we do here is land acknowledgements. And I did learn that this is something a little bit unique to Canada, but I'm very excited to share this with you today. It is something that we do at the start of every event to acknowledge the Indigenous people who have been here before us. So I would like to start by saying Toronto, Canada is the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples. It is now home to many diverse Inuit Métis peoples. All right. So looking at our agenda, what are we going to go over today? We are going to go about who are you? We're going to do a little quick activity, think about who we are as individuals and what we're bringing to the table when we look at doing things like internships, networking, all that jazz, which we'll talk about. And then we're going to move on to who are we as well. I'm also going to introduce who we are, Giants Network, and who Women in Politics is. Step number 3 is going to be talking about those internships and finding a mentor. Then we're going to talk about networking, looking at how to build a CV, cover letter, resume. We're also going to be talking about building your own brand. So what does it look like on social media? We're going to talk about a little bit about doing some interviews and also thinking about your mental health and mental wellness going through this process. So we got some amazing feedback in our application forms talking about like, how do I look after myself? And I think that's one of the best questions to be asking, so we will talk about that. We will also talk about some next steps that you can take away after today, because today's just the first step. And then finally, we'll have our Q&A, so we'll leave that for the end. And I will point out that this meeting is being recorded, so if you do come off camera, know that it's being recorded. And if you have already done so and you don't want to be recorded later, just give us a message. You can message Rebecca privately and we can make sure to cut those out, because we will be sending you a recording of this as well as the slides. So you'll be able to come back and learn with us again if you choose. All right, let's dive in. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk about Giants Network and who Women in Politics is. Who are we? So if you're unfamiliar with who Giants Network is Giants Network is a group of facilitators and organizations originally based in Toronto, Canada, but since March, when the pandemic hit, we have actually expanded now across many areas of the world, which I'm very excited about. And our whole goal is just to support youth as they develop their leadership skills through whatever way they want to, with their unique skills, their unique interests, and supporting those areas as they grow into leaders. And then Women in Politics is an online magazine, blog, YouTube channel, all of that jazz. And they provide girls a platform where they can learn how to become women in politics and pursue a career in that area of interest. All right. So who are you? We know who we are, but who are you? So we're going to dive into an activity. And the first part is we're going to look at some role models in the world right now. So some women who are creating awesome change around the world. And I want you to take out that tool that you have to write with. So whether it's pen and paper, it's on your laptop. And I just want you to take a moment to reflect on these 3 women and what makes them special. What do you know about them? What are some key traits and characteristics, maybe some actions that they've taken that really stand out to you? What makes them unique? And why do you look up to them? For me, like, I really look up to Michelle Obama, so that would be someone who I could write about. But these are 3 awesome women, and I'm going to give you a minute to think about what stands out to you. And where you feel comfortable as well, I also will open this part up now to the chat. So if there's anybody who wants to share one of their thoughts in the chat, I invite you now to comment. Yes, I agree. That is a great comment. Yes, so no matter what, these 3 role models, they continue to pursue and stand up for those. And I love that idea. Yep. Promote positivity in the world. Yes, I agree. Great comment. Yes, awareness. Excellent. Yes, their platforms. Excellent. So for platforms, that's going to definitely relate to the brand that we're going to talk about later as well. Yes, Michelle. Yes, they're confident. Yes. All right, these are awesome. Please continue to comment in there if you'd like. And now we're going to move on to the next part of this activity, which is, who are you? So now I want you to take those things that you just thought about those 3 amazing role models. I want you to start thinking about yourself. How would you describe yourself? What would other people say about you? What are some of your strengths? And be honest, maybe it's something that might be a weakness for you. And what past experiences do you have? And where do you want to go? Now, at this point in the activity, if you would like, I have my little drawing here, if you can see it. So with this, what I've done is I put my name in the middle, and then I've done these little leaves of little things that I believe about myself. So if that helps you structure it, if you're artistic, if you like drawing, if you hate drawing, you do not have to do this. You can structure it any way you want on your laptop. But for me, I kind of like drawing pictures. So maybe instead of words, you could draw pictures if that helps you structure this. Yeah. Okay. And as you write, what I want you to think about too is we're going to come back to this piece of paper or wherever you're writing, whether on your computer. We're going to be using this as a framework as we go through the workshop. So think about how you can keep it in a way that you can come back and make notes for yourself later. Okay. So moving on to internships and mentors. Is there anyone that has any questions in the chat? Feel free before we move on. If you have any questions about that last activity or in general before we go into internships and mentors, I will keep an eye on the chat. All right, here we go. So just because COVID hit does not mean that internships are canceled. There are still ways to do a lot of online work right now. So the first one is you can still be connecting with companies and other people around the world. And particularly now, one of the things that I'm loving about the online experience is I'm connecting with people in the US, the UK, and Australia. So actually, this is your opportunity to be doing internships globally. So think about what you can be doing now as a benefit. And thinking about just generally working online, think about, you know, how can your skills, especially in the tech world as youth, these are the things that you have a special area of knowledge in. So you can be bringing these skills to the table in a way that a lot of people need help with right now. So think about organizations that could really use you in supporting them through the pandemic. In a lot of ways as well, there are ways to find one-on-one role models and moving on to mentors as well. This is your chance to make those little connections with people individually. This is your chance to find somebody who will support you, someone who will give you learning skills in new areas, someone who will believe in you and support you and have your back. This is a chance to find someone who can be a reference for you. So when you're applying for internships and other places, they can say this person did a really amazing job and why. This is your chance to develop communication skills and get feedback on what you've been doing. And I feel like now more than ever as well, this is your chance to make mistakes. Because if you say do an internship in Canada and you're based in the US, maybe you don't do so well in that internship, but that's not going to affect you as much where you are, right? So think about how you can just really get out there, make those mistakes, learn, find that person to support you. And we're going to use that knowledge as we work along in our webinar. Okay, so starting with how to network. How are we going to find those people? First of all, think about why you're connecting. Are you looking for someone who's a mentor? So that's someone who's going to coach you one-on-one. Are you looking for someone who's going to be a teacher? Someone who is going to specifically give you a skill and support you learning that skill? Are you looking for a role model? Just genuinely someone to look up to, learn from, watch from, and just get to know a little bit and see their life experiences? Or are you just trying to find a resource? Someone who you can call up and say, hey, I don't know anything about X. Can you please help me learn more? And then you want to think about connecting through your already built network. So I'm sure 3 degrees of separation, using your family, using your friends, you already have a network of people who you can easily find and connect with. So if you think about me, I have me, my family, and then I have my neighbors, I have my community. And now, because I'm online, I have this global connection of just being able to research people, connect with them through email and say, hey, I'm really interested in working with you. So think about those little connections that bridge out into one big network. And then when it comes to networking, being bold, like I loved in the comments that you guys said, being confident, because that's one of the big keys is you have to put aside your nerves and say, I'm here, my name is Emily, and I want to work with you. So I'm going to share a little tidbit of something that I used to do, and I still do sometimes because I get nervous when I'm meeting new people, is the 10-second rule, not 10 minutes. Please don't take 10 minutes with this. But what you're doing is you're stopping, taking a breath, and you're going to count to 10. And by the time you get to 10, you're probably going to think, why am I still sitting here not sending this email? Why am I still standing here and not going up to this person and saying hello? So I invite you to think about, okay, if I'm feeling nervous and I'm not bold in this moment, just take a moment for yourself and it will come. And finally, when you're networking, think about ways you can build trust and stay in touch with people. And building trust is all about listening, acknowledging what you're learning from someone, acknowledging what they can give to you. And my little tidbit here as well is having a contact list for yourself. And the way I like to structure my contact list is I have people's names, I have how I met them, and then I have a follow-up comment. So something like, I just talked to my friend today and they told me they got a new dog. And that might seem like a pretty insignificant fact, but think about next time you talk to that person, you have an excellent icebreaker that you can now say, hey, how's your dog? And then you can start your conversation from there. So think about what's that little piece of information you can remember about somebody. So that way when you next connect with them, it's a great way of catching up. All right, let's talk about cold emailing. I'm so used to saying cold calling, but now it's all about email. All right, so first, know about the person you're contacting. All right, I had a moment of freezing, but now I think I'm back. So think about who you're contacting. Are they the right person in the first place? What value are they bringing to you? Think back to what I mentioned before. Are they a mentor? Are they a teacher? Right? Use the subject line in your email to your advantage, because the subject line will make or break your email. If you write something like, hey, I want to talk, they're probably not going to open your email. But if you write something like, looking to connect, that's something that's a bit less direct, a little less disorganized, more specific, right? Know what you want from them. So before you even start to think about writing your email, know in your mind, what is your direct ask? And what are you directly telling them that you need? Make sure you include an email signature, and make sure that you attach your resume. So we're going to talk about the resume. We're going to go over an example email. But right here on the right, you will notice what an example signature looks like. So Rebecca here has shared hers. This has the website, this has an email, sorry, a phone number to contact. Also, you can include your handles, and then you can also include a logo in addition if you'd like. There's lots of components you can include in a signature. All right, so here's our next activity. And I'm going to rely on you guys again in the chat to share your thoughts. So here's an example email. I'm going to give you a moment to read it over. And I want you to think about what works well. What is missing? Going back to our original slide, what is the direct ask in this email? What am I looking for? How am I acknowledging the purpose of this email? Okay, so I'm going to give you a moment. Take your time reading through it. Really think about each sentence and what it does. And then in a moment, I will invite you to comment in the chat. But let's give everyone a moment to read and think about what's here in this email. So as you're making those notes, I'm going to read it out one more time. And then after I have read it, I'm going to invite you to put your comments in the chat. All right, so subject line. Writing advice for a high school student. Hello, my name is Emily DeCane, and I'm going into grade 10 next year. I am passionate about politics, and as a young woman, I hope to be a role model for others in this field. I just finished reading your book, Leading the Way for Women, and was inspired by the frameworks you presented and you shared experiences. I'm emailing today because I'm wondering if you would be available for a Zoom call to speak to me about writing tips and advice for my own work. I enjoy writing blog posts and I have been published in my school newspaper, and here's where I would insert a link. In particular, I need help with incorporating my research into my writing. Thank you for your consideration. All the best, Emily DeCane, and inserting that awesome signature that we talked about. Okay, I invite you now, if you have comments, please share them in the chat. I look forward to reading some of them. Yep, exactly, good. Good introduction, yes. Grammar, important, yep. Provides name and age, yes. Great point, yep. Good, that's very important. Yes, okay, so there's every sentence, I'm trying to be specific. Yep, and what you're looking to achieve, very good. Yes, okay, so I'm just gonna comment on your comments. So what was pointed out, excellent. So grammar usage, not correct. So what's very important is no matter how strong your email is, if they see multiple spelling errors, if they see poor punctuation, if your internship or experience with them involves writing, they're going to consider this a part of your application. So it's very important to take time, have someone look at your email before you send it off, because you very often will be writing and you won't be able to see your own mistakes. So it's always important to have someone else look over your work. And yes, it's very important to introduce who you are. Don't be afraid to say stuff about you because they want to hear it. So going back to that little drawing we just did about ourselves, make sure to incorporate something fun and important about yourself. Including your age is also important so they know who they're talking to. It just gives them a little bit of a sense of what you're up to and what you're doing in the world. Okay, and again, being as specific as possible and having those direct asks in your email. All right, so let's move on. Resume, CV, cover letter, here we go. So before you get started with anything, you have to look at the application or the job that you're looking at, the internship that you're looking at, or the person you're trying to connect with, okay? So do they ask for a resume? Do they ask for a cover letter? Or just in general, are you just gonna have an email with them? What are the formats that they are asking for? If they say your resume has to be size 12 font, Times New Roman, then it's very important to make sure that those are included, because they're probably looking at a stack of 100 applicants. And if there's any easy way to eliminate you, like you didn't follow the instructions for this application, whoop, to the side. So it's very important to make sure you follow what they ask. I advise you to read through their job description very carefully to create a framework for yourself when you're applying. So are they looking for you to have any area of knowledge in math? Are they looking for you to have experience outdoors? Those little moments in the job description can really help boost your application. And then think about, do you really meet the requirements? So again, looking at that job description will tell you if there's things that you're not meeting. That's going to be important later to tell them maybe why you don't have it, or maybe think about maybe this isn't the right one to apply for. Okay, moving on. What's the difference actually now between a CV and a resume? Because this question I get a lot. I would say it's basically the difference between extensively long application and a brief conversation. Okay, so a CV is normally used in academia. Normally when you're applying for university, it's going to be this nice, long, juicy 6-pager that has all the information about you and all of your accomplishments. And normally, again, it's about post-secondary university, okay? Versus your resume is about 1 to 2 pages long, and this is when you're using for job hunting, for internships, even for mentorships. It might be nice to send in a little bit of a quick, brief resume, and it's very specifically tailored to your job that you're applying for or the internship you're applying for, versus your CV is just everything that you have done that could possibly apply to your application. And then I mentioned a cover letter. So what is a cover letter? It literally covers your resume. So it sits at this top. It's the first page when you used to hand in paper version, and now it's the first page of your document. And that's what's tailored to the job. So this is where it's very important to look at the job description and think about what are the specific things that they're looking for. And it also might be really nice to take a look at their website, their social media, and see what the values are that the organization's looking for, because then you can incorporate that into your cover letter. This is also your chance to describe who you are, show your little bit of personality, and it's just a 1-page summary that sits at the front, right? So be direct with your intentions. You can expand on your resume lines. So if you find that like after you've made your resume, because I advise you start with your resume and then go back to your cover letter, this can be your chance to be like, you know what, I couldn't use this one part of my resume, but I can add it to the start because I think it really shows my skills and my knowledge. And then show how you can add value to the organization. So again, like I mentioned, maybe there's something that you don't fit with in the application, but this is your chance to explain why. So a great example that I actually have dealt with recently is I'm not up to date on all the medical science for a particular topic, but here's why and how I'm going to make up for it. All right. So going back to our little brainstorm that we had before about ourselves, I want you to start thinking about how those little branches can now start becoming descriptions qualitatively and quantitatively. So think about how there can be numbers applied. Maybe you have done 5 internships already. That seems like a lot. Let's say 1 internship for now, or 0. But think about how those experiences, maybe now let's drill down into some numbers. Maybe during that time you did 5 blog posts. Maybe during that time you did 2 explorations of something. Think about during each one of those, how did you learn and grow during those? Versus the word descriptions within those experiences. So let's take a look on the right-hand side here. For instance, you're the soccer team captain. Okay, so now here's an example of you have now led 30 girls by being the team captain. So that's one quantitative example of what you've done. Now, plans and implementations, you've made drills, you've implanted techniques, and you've been a role model for other women in your team. So that's how I would break down that experience into quantitative and qualitative. So I'm going to give you a moment now to do that for yourself. Pick one of your skills that you wrote down, and I want you to think about how can you drill down to those little moments of quantitative and qualitative. And if you have any questions, please share them in the chat. I would love to hear your thoughts on this particular activity. Okay. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat now. Otherwise, I'm going to move on to our next slide. Okay. So here is a brushstroke of some things you can include in your resume. So what's important is to create a lot of space within it. So you don't want big chunks of text everywhere covering up your resume. You want to make sure that there's space within it to play. And again, think about what your eye wants to look at. If you're the person reading this resume, do you want to look at chunks of text or do you want to look at something nice and clean? And then include your name on every page. Think about your headers and your footers. So kind of jumping to the fourth point here is like, what are the headings that you're going to have at the top of the page and at the bottom of the page? It's nice to have numbers as well. And on the first page too, it's really nice to include your name, your contact information, your email, all that jazz, okay? And then also include the dates and the months of all the work that you've been doing. And you can also include the date that you're applying. Think about the headings that you're going to break up your information by. So some suggestions could be your education, all your work experience, your volunteer experience, and your awards. And then again, think about those numbers. What can you quantify? What can you be very specific about? And what are some things that you can qualify and expand on and describe? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you an example because I am a big visual person. So here's an example of a friend's resume. Here at the top of her page, she has included an email address, a phone number, and her handle. She's also included a very specific career goal for herself. So this is something that she's looking for. This is an optional thing, but sometimes it's really nice to say, here's what I'm out to do in the world. And it kind of gives the person a sense of your goals and what you're trying to achieve within the job that you're applying for. And then she's listed out her education. And then again, she's included the dates on the right-hand side. And the education also includes her awards. So you can also see here that she's not only a student, but she's also a teacher because she's now certified as a Red Cross swim instructor. All right, to continue on, here's another part of the resume that we can take a look at. So you'll see here at the top, it says employment. So we talked about the headings. And then again, subtitles for each job, what the title was of the job, what they did, looking for the quantifiable and the qualified. I always get these tongue-tied twisters. Oh my gosh, my tongue's getting tied on that. But looking for those two components. Okay, so we're going to move on to building our brand next, but I just want to again check in the chat. Does anyone have any questions about the resumes? And I'm actually going to go back through the slides. If there's anything maybe here that stands out to you that you have a question about, please feel free to put it in the chat now. Yes, let's go back. Okay. So is this the slide that you're referencing? These are the components of the resume? So I would land here as a starting point. Yes, okay. I will leave this up for a minute if you want to take a specific screenshot of it. And again, this will also be available to you at the end of the webinar today. But if there's anything here you want me to highlight or talk about more, this would be a great opportunity because I really do like this slide and I think it's very important. Yes, okay, let's talk about that. So the difference between a cover letter is a dialogue versus bullet points in a resume. So think about the cover letter as the introduction to you. It's it's a one-page, paragraph by paragraph saying, hello, this is who I am, this is why I'm applying, this is why I belong in your organization. And it literally looks like a one-page summary, journal entry almost kind of style. I apologize, I don't have an example here in the slides, but what I can do at the very end is I'm going to make a note to include a whole example cover letter and a whole example resume that I will give to Rebecca to share with you. I'm just going to make a note here. That will be included with the slides that you can use as a template. Okay, so let's talk about numbers for a second. So I'm going to go back. That's a great question. So there's two ways to use your numbers. So one is the dates. Okay, so looking at this slide here, I've used the dates on the right-hand side to acknowledge when I received those awards or those certifications. And then here on this slide, I'm again using them to write the dates that I worked. So let's look at the crew training and health and safety committee member, for example. In this one, Danica has said, I worked from October 2006 to August 2008. So that specific window of when you worked. And what's actually really great is the way that you organize your resume is the order in which that you're currently working to the bottom of it is when you last, the oldest work that you've done. So that way when the person's reading it, they can see your most recent work and then say, you know what, your most recent work is not impressive. I'm not going to keep reading and moving on versus, oh, wow, look at all the work that they've done. Oh, they previously did this. So it's a little bit narrative as well as the order, what you do here. So if you see here, the lifeguard and the Splashworks, currently October 2008 to present. So that's saying this is where I'm currently working now. Versus, I'm just gonna go back to my previous slide here. When I'm saying numbers, it's really nice to include the value of how much stuff you're working on. So I'm gonna give an example. Leads a soccer team. Leads a soccer team of 30 girls. The second version is saying, I have a team of people that I'm leading. Not only one, but 30 people I'm responsible for. So by adding that one number, it just strengthens my resume. Hopefully that answers the question about numbers. And on mine, I've whether or not. Oh, okay, so great question about, okay, so GPA and grades on your resume if you're still in school, what's your take on this? Okay, so that's actually a really great question because that relates to this slide, I think. Yes, okay, so for this one, what are the components that they are looking for? Are they asking for your grade? Because specifically if you're applying for university, for example, they will ask for your grade. Versus an internship, they might not, but I know certainly some do because again, that's a way that they can look at your resume like, nope, they didn't get an A in that course. So what I'd recommend is either emailing them ahead of time. This is a great way actually to connect even before you apply and say, hi, my name is Emily, and I'm really interested in applying for your internship. Here are some questions I have about my application. Are you interested in looking at my GPA? And then they'll write back saying, no, we don't need that number. Or yes, absolutely, your GPA is so important for our application. That's a great question, thank you for asking it. So not only have you now made that initial connection, but now you know to include that in your resume. So that was a really great question, thank you for that. All right, awesome. So please continue to save these for the end and I will come back to your questions. All right, so let's do building your brand. So for social media, a great way to share a little bit more about yourself is to create a personal account that is just about yourself as a professional. So making sure you separate yourself as a person online versus what you're doing in your internships or what you're doing in school. So a really great way to make yourself stand out and a great place to send people to learn more about you. So think about how you're being perceived over here. You know, you want photos of yourself in action. You want photos of yourself engaging with other people, and separate that out from your personal life. And think about what platforms you're on as well. So if you're on Instagram, Facebook, who are the audiences that you're now engaging with? So audiences on Instagram are normally younger than audiences on Facebook. Who are you trying to reach? Is there a particular person that's available on that platform that you want to network? So is there someone on Facebook that you really want to talk to? And then who do you want to connect with in particular through accounts and other messaging systems? And then we did get a lot of questions about LinkedIn. So first off, you have to be 16. So I don't know if you guys know this, but you have to be 16 to set up a LinkedIn account, just because it is a professional space, and also to discourage underage people from working and highlighting that work on, you shouldn't be working under 16. So thinking about what's appropriate work and where you're showcasing it. For those who are unfamiliar with LinkedIn, it's similar to Facebook in that you create a profile for yourself, but it's a professional profile. This is where you share your reputation, what you've been working on. It's kind of like a really quick resume in a sense, because all your jobs have been listed and your education has been listed. And it's a really great way to connect with people through messaging. It has the same messaging features. It has networking pages, and it has job opportunities as well. So this is where you can actually connect with people to find internships and to find job descriptions online. So I saw a comment here about age. So I'm unsure of why you were able to do that, because I know that there's terms and conditions. So I'd really take a look at what account you've made, and just think about what you're sharing if you do have an account. I'd also recommend, this is just a blanket recommendation for anyone who's under 16. If you're making an account on a platform that maybe there's a specific age requirement for, I really recommend talking to an adult to make sure that you're doing it properly and safely. So, interviews. Let's say your application gets through, someone acknowledged you on a platform, and now you're actually connecting with them. Let's talk about the day of. So before the interview, it's very important, again, that you research the company. Be prepared for questions. Be prepared to ask them questions. So think about something basic that you can say that will let them know that you've done research on them. Make sure you sleep. Sometimes the anxiety will get you and you might stay up all night. So think about turning off the technology early, maybe read a book, relax, and try to get a good night's sleep. And make sure you eat and stay hydrated. For me, when I get nervous, I sometimes don't like to eat anything because I feel so nauseous and nervous. But you gotta eat. Make sure you're paying attention to your body and looking after yourself. And plan ahead of time what you're going to wear. Because if you show up in your track pants, that's going to send a very clear signal. So make sure that you're wearing the proper business attire or the expected dress code of your interview. During your presentation itself, try to be as calm and professional as you can and present yourself in a way that makes you feel confident, as well as allows them to get to know you a little bit better. And then also don't hesitate to ask them questions too, because you're interviewing them just as much as they're interviewing you. And afterwards, make sure to write them a thank you letter for meeting with you. It merely makes you stand up to say, hey, thank you for your time. And also, this is your chance to ask me follow-up questions. So you leave the room and you think, oh, hold on. And that's your chance to ask them in that follow-up email. All right. And so I touched on mental health a little bit there, but I also just wanted to talk about a little bit more in detail and just saying that it's really important to stick to your routine. Going through this process can bring on a lot of stress. Especially right now, anything that you do adds a little bit of stress. We're working through a time where we're already a little bit on alert. So making sure that you step back and think about, what are some things I can do for myself to de-stress? What do I need? And so I'm really glad somebody asked this question, because I think it's important to ask for advice and for help. So think about maybe someone in your life you can ask for advice or help. Or maybe this is something you can ask from your mentor once you get a mentor, or from someone that you're working with at your internship. And always try to find something that makes you happy and calm. That's not the internship, because I know for me, the internship is what makes me happy, but I also need something else that makes me happy that I can separate from. All right, and remember that when you're applying for things, they want to work with you. Like, people genuinely want to meet you, especially as young future leaders. People want to meet you and hear your story. So just be yourself. That's who they want to know. All right, so next steps. What I recommend after our webinar is create a vision board for yourself and what your next steps are going to be. So that can be like, I'm going to review the notes from the webinar. Could be a really basic start, but maybe I'm going to get a summer internship, and that summer internship might work into a part-time job. And then that part-time job might roll into something else, and maybe what school's gonna look like. And just start thinking about what do you want in the next few years? Set yourself some goals. And again, invest in your health. So think about what are some things I can do for me. What might also help with planning is just get to know literature a little bit more. So stay in tune with the news where you feel comfortable. Read some nonfiction books and see what other people in the industry are talking about. Look at strengthening your strengths and weakening your weaknesses. So focus on what makes you stand out. So going back to our vision board for ourselves, what makes me unique? And if I have a few weaknesses, are they weaknesses I want to spend time on, or are those things that I can accept about myself? And finally, shout out to the Women in Politics Community Slack that's coming out. So you can join that and you can find more resources there as well. All right. Also, for going away and planning your notes, here's one more thing to start thinking about. What's unique about your personality? What makes you fun and exciting to other people? Why do people want to talk to you? What are some shared values that you might have with others? Or what are some values you want to stay true to? What are some skills that you can bring to the table that you think are unique? Relevant experiences. What are your qualifications that you currently have that you can highlight? And what are some achievements that you can share? All right. Finally, I'm going to have these resources here. We can come back to this and take a screenshot, but again, these will be available in the slides. And I just want to say thank you so much for coming to this webinar. We have now reached the end of my talking.